You can never underestimate the Swedes at the World Junior Championships. And on today's show, we're breaking down their roster for the upcoming World Juniors, and we're going to look at how they might be lining up.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA Scout over at Elite Prospects. And on today's episode, we're going to be digging into the potential line combinations and the now officialized roster for Team Sweden at the World Juniors. It is that time of year. You know Christmas is coming up when we start talking World Juniors, and the countdown is happening. So we will be spending the first segment really just digging into which players actually got added into this roster, how many drafted players there are, and just introducing the team in that way. Then the second segment, we're going to look at how they might be lining up, both at forward, on defense, and which goaltender might get the nod in terms of starting the most games, or the most important games at the very least. And finally, we'll be wrapping it up with our predictions of where Sweden might finish at this tournament and which players will be the biggest standouts. So strap yourselves in, make yourselves comfortable, grab yourselves something to drink, and let's just dig straight into the show here. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. So the Swedes, this is going to be a fascinating season, I think, for Team Sweden. And they have some really high-end prospects here this campaign. You have a second overall draft pick. You have a player that will be contending for first or second overall this year. A lot of these high-end guys and different styles as well that could even play well together on lines. And on defense, you have a whole bunch of quality, a whole bunch of mobility, and not a single right-shot defenseman. That is... I can't remember the last time I've seen a single team lineup, let alone a national team, with only left shot defensemen. There were 8 defensemen, and they are all left shot. That's fun. I enjoy that. That's entertaining at the very least. And we'll be digging into here to the players that got the invite. And just to kind of prime this, like the last couple seasons, Sweden, last year they came in second place with a silver medal finish. 2 years prior to that, they came in third in bronze, but they have not won the World Juniors since 2012 in Alberta here in Canada. And I think this is a roster where there's definitely hope for the Swedes to break that trend and win their first World Juniors in over a decade, even though they're perpetually there in the running. They've won 4 or 5 silver medals over the course of that gold medal drought. Is this the year where that changes? Their most recent silver medal finish, of course, was in 2024, not 2025 in Ottawa. That was Finland, of course, that were runners up to the United States this past season. I have to get adjusted to 2026 being the year, because my eyes are still logging 2025 as very recent, and it's coming to an end here. So without further ado, let's just start digging into this roster, because we do have a lot of players to cover, and we'll just start in goal and work our way forward, because I think there's a couple forwards we want to spend some time talking about here at the end of the segment. So in net, the 3 goaltenders that have been brought, there's 2 that have been drafted and 1 that is not. The one that has not been drafted is the oldest among the 3, as a 2006 born goaltender. That's Herman Liv. Then we have Love Herenstam, who's been playing some really good hockey in Hockey Allsvenskan this season against pro competition, as well as Manskos, who's also been doing all right. But I think Manskos is probably a step behind Herenstam and Liv for that starting position in net. Among the defensemen, again, these are all left shots, so we'll see how they actually pair these guys up. But the 2 big names are Sasha Boumedienne and Alphonse Frey, both of the Winnipeg Jets organization, and both guys that bring a lot of puck moving skill and intelligence. And Frey has that elite level mobility as well. So those two could be interesting guys, at least to pair up for an offensive zone faceoff when you really need a goal. Expect those two to be on the ice. You've also got Leo Salin Valenius, drafted by the San Jose Sharks, Victor Johansson, Toronto Maple Leafs draft pick, and Viggo Gustafsson of the Nashville Predators organization. And that gives you the 5 blue liners that have earned a draft pick here in the National Hockey League that got the invite to the tournament. And they're rounded out by guys that will actually be playing, I think, significant roles on this team, despite being undrafted status. You have Felix Correll, who's been playing really solid games in the SHL this season, very responsible defensively. He could certainly play a top 4 role as a 2006 birthday here as well. You've got William Hawkinson, a top draft eligible for this season, so for the 2026 NHL draft, a player that brings some really good shutdown abilities defensively, and I don't expect him to be limited to like a 4th pair extra minute role. This guy can play. Expect him to maybe be a 3rd pairing presence here for Team Sweden. And finally, there's also Felix Erkvist, another 2006 undrafted defenseman playing in the Linköping system, also getting some SHL minutes here this season. He's gotten into 12 games there and 11 games in Hockey Allsvenskan. So you definitely have guys with professional. Certainly, everyone has guys with playoff experience, but they have guys with professional experience, which is certainly an advantage, especially on the blue line, to have a collection of mature players to fill those slots and keep offensive chances to the outside, especially when playing against teams like the United States and Team Canada, who've got just so much offensive firepower. Moving on, we have the forwards, and we're just going to go through this list alphabetically because it ends with the guy I want to spend the most time talking about. We've got Jack Berglund of the Philadelphia Flyers, a 2006 birthday, one of the older. He's going to be a very rugged player for this forward core, hard-working, middle-driven, nothing fancy, but tough to play against and very physically engaged. Then you've got Viggo Björck, top draft eligible also for this season in 2026. Very intelligent, skilled forward, broke the U20 scoring record last season as a 17-year-old, and a player that has just so much brimming offensive talent. But the question here is he going to be able to withstand the play physically against tougher defensive opposition, especially around the crease and the goal? But what's also important to note with this player is that, yeah, he's undersized, underweight, but he has been playing in the SHL this season with Djurgården, and he's been faring quite impressively well. So this is going to be a lesser level of competition compared to pro hockey in the SHL. So maybe see him flourish offensively a little bit more than we have so far in the league phase. His older brother, Wilson Björck, is also on this invite squad. A guy who is a Vancouver Canucks draft pick, one of the older forwards on this roster, playing with Colorado College in the NCAA here this season, where he's logged 6 points in 13 games. He's a player that just constantly works quite hard. He has pretty good vision around the net front. Nothing overly dynamic, especially relative to his younger brother, but still a player of note. You also got Liam Danielsson, who is playing also pro hockey in Sweden, playing quite well this season. He might be a factor somewhere in the bottom 6, but during the summer showcase, he was even playing on the top line and faring quite well. So he might be a versatile piece who can move up and down the lineup. Then we've got one of the stars of the team, Victor Eklund of the New York Islanders, 16th overall selection from the 2025 draft. Also playing with Djurgården in the SHL here this season. Brings all the pace, very middle-driven, such a hard worker with really high-end skill. Expect him to light up junior competition here. He's going to eat it up. Linus Eriksson's another player of note who should be playing a really important role in the middle six down the middle as a two-way center. Of course, Anton Frondell has to be mentioned here, going to be the first line center for this team, expected to be the star guy, the go-to goal scorer on the power play, the go-to two-way center as well to ice whenever you need to shut things down defensively. The second overall pick from the Chicago Blackhawks is going to be a very important part of this squad. So third overall pick. Did I say second this entire episode? Third overall selection from the Chicago Blackhawks, Anton Frondell, of course, who is going to be the go-to guy. And the question is, how far can he carry this team? Just a quick fire here to get through some of the other middle six, bottom six guys here at forward. We've got Eddie Genborg, another physical, hard-working winger. Milton Gästrin, a skilled, quick center who will probably be taking on second-line minutes, especially when you want to kind of score a goal as well and create something. Gästrin is a very creative player from the Washington Capitals organization. Kasper Justovara Karlsson is an undrafted forward who also just has an absolutely high motor, outworks everyone, and could be a really helpful piece as an extra forward or fourth liner to just put out there when you need someone to put a shift in terms of hard work. Loke Krantz is a Seattle draft pick, is also here on this squad, who's been scoring at a high rate at the U20 level and also gotten some games professionally this season, but hasn't really been finding the back of the net in those games. He's a guy I think is either going to be an extra forward or maybe even a roster cut as one of the younger guys here who I don't think is going to figure in all that much offensively for this team. But who knows? I could be wrong. Sweden is not my closest area of scouting. So if you've watched him, please let me know if I'm mistaken about this. Walter Lindberg is another undrafted, but 2006 birthday center who can just play really solid minutes in his own end. And that reliability, that professional experience is going to be worth gold for the Swedes at this tournament. Eric Nilson's another very responsible defensive player from the Anaheim Ducks organization, can play down the middle, can play on the wing, very versatile, very intelligent, defensively capable. And his Anaheim Ducks, future teammate, Lucas Pettersson, is a guy that might be playing the top six as a really dynamic, speedy winger. He's got a lot going for him, very exciting player, especially when he has space and time to work with, which is much more available, of course, at the junior level of competition than professionally. I think he's going to have a field day offensively at this tourney. And last, but most certainly not least, Ivar Stenberg, player who is just so exhilarating to watch. I covered him specifically in an entire show last week, just a full deep dive half-hour episode on Ivar Stenberg and what has made him so special as a high IQ playmaking winger who can create out of nothing and has been scoring at a point-a-game clip, which is unprecedented for a draft-eligible forward in the SHL. He is going to be joining Anton Frondell on that top line, and hopefully Victor Eklund's going to be the other guy on that top line. I think those three could absolutely wreak havoc. And that's it here for the first segment. In the next one, we'll be looking at how exactly they line up. I already spoiled the top line there for you, but we'll keep digging into those here right after these messages from our sponsors at Locked On NHL Prospects. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so very exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds in front of you. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly on FanDuel, and that lets you jump straight into the moment. You can bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every single snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, let's keep this show rolling as we're breaking down the Swedes at the World Juniors, and let's see how they are going to line up. This is just a prediction on my end, and I'm trying to build on some semblances of chemistry as well that these players may already have with one another. But more than anything, trying to balance things out a little bit. But if you are based in Sweden, you watch a lot of Swedish hockey, you may be more familiar with them than I am, and I'd love to also hear how you would line up these players in the comments down below, especially the defense, because they are all left shots. It's not quite as simple necessarily to pair them up because you have to really go for the best stylistic fits rather than just going by handedness as a default. So we're going to start things off here among the forwards as we tease in the last segment, the top line of Ivar Stenberg, Anton Frondell, and Victor Eklund, I think, would be dynamite for the Swedes. You have just the incredibly high-end playmaking, handling, and IQ combination coming from Ivar Stenberg that can just drive offense, create some more. So you have that creative fulcrum already on that top line, which leaves also, I think, Anton Frondell in a much better position. Rather than having to carry the burden of offensive creation, he's going to be able to be an off-puck scorer, getting into goal-scoring positions, using that one-timer release, both at even strength and on the power play, while also being able to play that net front role, be an F1, be tough to play against, win his battles, use his physicality in the areas that get a bit more congested, while Victor Eklund can just be that hard-working spark plug that can fish pucks out of bigger scrums, can create in a pinch, has all the pace, all the intensity, and can just like sprint in on the forecheck on a moment's notice. I think those three guys would work really nicely together as a unit. For the second line, I'm going with Lucas Pettersson at left wing, paired with Milton Gästrin and Viggo Björck. There's not much size or physicality on this line. So maybe you want to get a guy like an Eddie Genborg or a Jack Berglund or maybe even a Linus Eriksson in the mix here in the second line to be a bit more perhaps defensively capable and a bit more physically like adaptable and be able to play up against the bigger competition here. But what the second line would provide would be a whole bunch of dynamism going forward. You got a relentless speed. You've got a high IQ creative force in Viggo Björck on down the right flank. Milton Gästrin works very hard. He's a dynamic playmaking center who can attack with pace, comfortable carrying the puck, and also connecting plays between his wingers. And then Lucas Pettersson also has that relentless speed aspect coming down the left flank. I guess the question here is, which of these three becomes the natural finisher, or is it even ideal that they're all a bit more known to be passers and could therefore also be a bit more unpredictable in what they're able to do as a unit in the offensive zone? But let me know your thoughts down below. The third line, I'm going with Eddie Genborg, Linus Eriksson, and Jack Berglund, the three stable guys where one of them could certainly play up a line and kind of like balance things out a bit more. I think what I'm going for here is to have specialist lines in the middle six here for the Swedes, to have a line that you put out there for offensive zone draws and a line that you put out there for a rebound shift after a PK that can just work really hard, be stable defensively, grind out minutes, play those matchup minutes against top lines of the opposition. Those three guys are not going to lose their physical battles, and they're going to be playing very responsible defensive hockey. For the fourth line, I'm looking at Liam Danielsson, as well as Walter Lindberg and Eric Nilson, and another three guys that can play very responsible defensive minutes. I think this is a solid fourth line that can check hard and stay in position really nicely. Eric Nilson, very adaptable player, can play at center or on the wing. I have him on the wing in this current lineup, but he could just as easily also get a roll down the middle. And last but not least, the extra forwards. I've got Wilson Björck and Kasper Justavara Karlsson as guys that you can just plug in, work hard. With Wilson Björck, you have a bit more of a playmaking force that you can plug in maybe into your top nine. And with Justavara Karlsson, just a relentless checker that can play anywhere you need a guy of that style to kind of fit in. Then for the defense, I'm going with a front-loaded top pair here with Sasha Boumedienne and Alphonse Frey. I think with Boumedienne, you have a player that is going to be the most intelligent defenseman in this core, the most perhaps established, the highest kind of quality guy at this stage. First round draft selection, of course. A player that is really strong in the breakout, reads play really quickly, very intelligently, has strong vision as a passer, and is showing increasingly at the college level as well his ability to create in the offensive zone as a playmaker. And playing with him, Alphonse Frey, you have the most dynamic skater among the defensive core here on this team. Two guys that will have encountered each other at training camp and stuff, or rookie camp for the Winnipeg Jets. And I think that Frey would offer the kind of also like carry out option in the defensive zone. Sasha Bloomington is very much a passer rather than a progressor in terms of his puck carrying into the neutral zone. But Alphonse Frey is just as capable with a really dynamic stretch pass as he is with using his feet to just create advantages. And he's also a guy I think could really thrive on the power play, just running things in the offensive zone. Very daring player on his night with a puck on his stick. I think that Frey might be the most dynamic offensive piece from the blue line on this team, and having those two guys together could be really fun to watch. That would leave to the second pair, Leo Saling Valenius, another smooth skating, puck moving left shot defenseman, because again, they are all left shot defensemen, paired with Felix Correll, playing in the SHL this season. Just a really steadying presence, very calm, very composed, decent size at 6'1", 187 pounds, playing with the Malmö Redhawks this season, but also has just gotten loaned to Kalmar HC in Hockeyallsvenskan, earlier on in the year, but he is back playing in the SHL. Not many minutes, got to be said. It's between 5 and 10 every night for Malmö, but still a player that's been going up against big physical competition, and I think at this tournament could really establish himself as a steadier on a second pair. Then on the third pairing, I'm going with William Hackinson, the high-profile draft-eligible prospect, likely going to be a first-round guy here this season. He brings mobility. He brings really, really strong defensive habits. He's a guy who's wise beyond his years in his own end. He's also been playing in the SHL this season full-time with Luleå, pretty much. I mean, he's been going a little bit more up and down between U20 and the SHL over the course of November. But prior to that, he got into 22 games in the SHL. He's a player, I think, that just exudes confidence and composure. And at 6'4", 207 pounds, he's got the size to play. I think he starts on the third pair, but could easily work his way up to the top four by tournament's end. The last guys here to mention would be Viggo Gustafsson, who I have on that third pairing with Hackinson, drafted by the Nashville Predators, as I mentioned earlier. Another guy who brings mobility and defensive responsibility to the equation. I think he's another guy that could just, again, progress plays up the ice quite well. Not the fanciest plays, not the most dynamic player. I think the dynamism really does come from the top pairing in this setup, but still a capable defender. And finally, Felix Erkvist and Victor Johansson wrapping it up on the fourth pair. Two guys that, again, as typical Swedish defensemen do, think the game well defensively and skate at an above average level for this tournament. So you have a well-rounded decor. And finally, to wrap it up in goal, we've got Love Herenstam at starter. He's been really impressive this season. The St. Louis Blues draft pick from the 2025 NHL draft, 6th round selection. He's been playing with Södertälje in Hockeyallsvenskan, and he's played in 24 games. He started 17 games. He has a 6-11-0 record, which doesn't come off so pretty, but when you look at the save percentage, a 913, he's just constantly bailing out his teammates at the Allsvenskan level. And finally, we also have Herman Liv, who will be contending, I think, be the backup coming into the tournament. But he's also playing in Hockeyallsvenskan. He's gotten 13 starts this season and has a 7-5 record and a 915 save percentage. He will be right there in the running if Herenstam stumbles out of the gate. But I think Mats Ghost is probably the de facto number 3. The Dallas Stars netminder was a 5th round draft pick this past year, but he's been playing mostly in the U20 this season, where he has a 7-5 record and a 906 save percentage. I would personally favor the guys that have been playing regular minutes at the pro level for this tournament. But that wraps things up here for the second segment. In the final one, we're going to wrap things up with our predictions for this tournament for the Swedes and which players might be getting a chance at MVP contention at this tournament. All that coming up next. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the absolute hardest part. And that's where the Game Time app comes in clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open up, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You can pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare potential seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print, just your seat for the game of a lifetime. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. All right, let's wrap up the show here as we're looking a little bit ahead at how Sweden might fare at this tournament. And I think they've got some really stiff competition. I don't think that needs to be mentioned. Team Canada's looking absolutely stacked here this season, especially getting guys like Michael Misa, for instance, to be released by or loaned out by the San Jose Sharks to participate at this tournament. Same thing with guys like Harrison Brunick, and you also have Gavin McKenna, and the list goes on. Team Canada's going to have to be cutting first-round draft picks from their forward core. Team Sweden doesn't have that luxury, but what they do have is, I think, a lineup that could be one of the more balanced ones at this tournament. As I mentioned, they have a lot of choices. They can adapt their lineup. They can go for matchup lines. They can go for specialist lines like the defensive third line and the offensive dynamo second line, or they balance those two out and just have really, really nice depth up and down the lineup. I think the advantage here for the Swedes really does come in their professional experience. More than half of these players have at least a handful of professional games under their belt. No other team at this tournament can say that about their players. Not even the Canadians, who have some guys with NHL appearances, only have a couple, and they have one guy in the AHL, and Trevor Connolly. But beyond that, these are all junior and college players for all the other teams, pretty much. And I think that always gives the Swedes some kind of little step ahead of the rest with just how early they get integrated into the pro ranks. Of course, Finland, you also have a kind of similar structure there in development, but I'm really curious to see if the Swedes are going to be able to ramp up the score against some of the lesser teams at this tournament. I would love to see guys like Stenberg, like Frondell, like Eklund just lighting things up against lesser competition. And then when they do come up against the higher end teams, to try to lock things down defensively and use those counterattacks, attack with pace, attack with speed, and leverage those power plays with the heavy one-timer from Frondell and the dynamic playmaking from Stenberg and the offensive activations from the blue line from Alphonse Frey. I think there's really like the workings of a team here that could be really tough to play against at this tournament. That being said, my prediction is that the finish will be a bronze medal one for the Swedes. I think that they will be in contention with the Americans. I think the Canadians, barring a meltdown like last year with just awful coaching decisions, I think Canada, it's their gold medal to lose at this tournament. They are just so deep, so much going for them, so much talent. But as we know from past tournaments, talent does not guarantee you anything at this level. What it does mean, though, is an uphill battle for teams that want to dethrone that, like whichever team is at the top from that favorite status at a tournament. And I think Sweden has a shot at that. I don't think that they are out of the running by any stretch of the imagination. They have high-end players. They have reliable depth up and down the lineup. And I like this team a lot. I think they're going to be really entertaining to watch at this tournament. They're definitely going to be one of my favorite teams to tune in for, I expect, to watch play. But my expectation is that Ivar Stenberg is the leader in scoring on among the Swedes. I think Frondell's going to be right in there as well. But I think Stenberg is really going to have a coming out party, and maybe it's a hot take, but my expectation is he might even outperform and outproduce Gavin McKenna at this tournament. That's going to be fascinating to watch, especially if for a game where Canada and Sweden were to play against each other. That would be a matchup that I would have my eyes glued to the screen for all night long. And in terms of players that could end up as the most valuable piece on this Swedish team, of course, Ivar Stenberg, Anton Frondell shouldn't even need to be mentioned here. Of course, they're in that running. The third name I will enter in that list is Alphonse Frey. I think he might have a breakthrough tournament. He's been playing some really solid hockey here over the course of the past months, really coming out at the SHL level with Timrå. He only has 2 assists in 25 games this season, but he's consistently playing second pairing minutes, if not like more on some nights. And that mobility just opens up so much. And his defensive game has become so much more reliable than it was in his draft year. And we've seen in years past at the U18 World Championships, for instance, just how well he can run a power play for the Swedes at the international level. Those guys, I think, could really have a nice chemistry building and ramp up the score and maybe give each other some points as well along the way. But that wraps things up here for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, please do let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this episode and what your expectations are for the Swedes at this tournament. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always greatly appreciated. And for your second listen, you're going to head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything you need to know to build yourself a competitive and sustainable fantasy roster. I am your host, Sebastian High, the USA Scout at Elite Prospects. Thank you so much for tuning in as always, and I'll catch you listening again very, very soon.